Okay. All right. So
shoot.
I want to start off by asking you a question.
Okay.
What do you think God thinks about dreams? And by dreams, I mean like
aspirations.
Yes, not like actual sleeping dreams.
I think God honors them. I mean, he gives them to us. I think, like, as kids, that's one of the first things that we embrace is our imagination and our ability to think outside of, like, the limitations that we're in. And I think with kids, like, they're the closest thing we have to, like, purity. Like, they're directly from heaven. And so I always relate a lot to how God moved with us as children as to how he really wants us to be as adults. So I really think like he puts them in us to do. And it just all depends on like, do you really feel like that came from God, or do you feel like that's like an ambition of your own? You can tell the difference.
Yeah, you can. Well, I think that's the problem. A lot of people can't because or they think that it is from God. Like they know the dream is from God, but they go about it in a very like
selfish way,
secular way. They just don't include God in that process.
Yes.
And I've realized in my experience that a lot of people don't know how to include
God.
Yeah.
Without it looking like pure flicks.
Yes, like God wants me to make a movie about salvation.
Yeah.
And it's like, all right, that's okay. No, just make a movie about whatever you...
Something.
Yeah,
like
something.
Character development or like being selfish or whatever.
Because those are two things that you do really well. Like the first thing that you do really well that I want to talk about is you are pursuing your dreams, but you're doing it in a way that includes God. Or you're trying your best to do that. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm sure me telling you this, you're like, no, I'm not. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I want to affirm that and say it totally looks like you're following the Lord. And I want to get into like that and what that looks like.
Thank you.
And then the other thing is like your stories and the stories that you tell, they're not like, what is it? I'm in love with a church girl. You know what I'm saying?
I couldn't do that. That doesn't feel... Those type of movies don't feel authentic to me. Yeah. Like, they're not telling... Like, that's not, like, day-to-day life. You know? Like, you didn't meet your wife in church.
Some of them did. And now
some of them did.
Now they're in therapy.
Now they're in therapy. They're divorced. You know? Like, it got messy. And it's not to say that that's bad.
Right.
It's just there's not one way that it looks for it to be... holy or for it to glorify God. And I think that's like the approach that I want to take to art. It's like it's not one way that it looks to appease church folk. Like I'm not trying to reach y'all. Y'all apparently already have the message. Right. That's not who I need to get it to. I need to get it to people that haven't found their way to their community yet, which is what I like to think more of. Like I want to guide them to their community out more so than guide them to a church. If that makes sense. You'll find that, church is good. It has its place. It's a great place to learn. But what you really need outside of those 2 hours a week is a community of people that, are like-minded and going in the same direction that you are.
You don't feel like your art has to be like the reason people get saved?
No. I did at one point, and the pressure, and I feel like the box that it puts you in is like things have to always end up at an altar call, and I just can't do it. I just can't. But if God instructs me to do that, what is a way that I can do it that feels authentic to how people truly experience God? Because not everyone is going to have the opportunity to meet him at an altar. You know, like you hear I've been seeing so many stories just on YouTube of like, oh, I met God in my shower, or I met him in my car, I met him at a park, or there's just so many different ways that people come into salvation or to the knowledge of Christ. Like it doesn't just look one way. So my prayer has been like, all right, God, will show me a different way to show this that feels more authentic and realistic to the audience that you called me to. I don't think I'm called to church people. You know, like I don't feel like that's my necessary ministry. Like I want to get to the people that are outside of that. Like, where are you? You know, like you're not going to be in a service. You may, but yeah, like I just don't think that's my call to reach people that way.
So what are some things that you do? Because I'm with you 100%. And unlearning that after believing that for so long that I had to always like write from a place of salvation and reaching the lost and getting people and discipling them and doing all that. So I was like, yo, I'm not.
Yeah.
Unless I'm clearly instructed by God to do so. But like for you, what is the process of like getting instruction for God for your dreams and things to do? Like just because you have some people get the idea and they're like, I need God to, or I'm going to do it the way that I know how to do it. But like,
God breathe on it.
Yeah. Breathe on what I did.
Yeah.
Versus like, okay, you gave me this vision. Now give me the instructions step by step. Or is it even step by step?
No, I don't get steps. I wish
fact.
I did.
That's a fact.
I need steps.
Listen.
But I would say like I'm just learning now the way that I hear from God.
Okay.
Like I used to think so. Since I've been young, I've always been like a kid that would like talk to myself, or I would get visions, and I would always just think of those as just daydreams of stuff that I just see. And now it's like, oh, I want to act this out, or I want to do this, or I want to do that. So I'm learning like that's how God communicates with me. Like, and I'm thinking that's just a natural thing that I do within myself. And I'm learning like, oh, that's really the Holy Spirit communicating with me in a way that I can hear it and receive it. So I'll be in my car. A lot of the times it's always like when I'm in movement, like that's always been my thing. If like I'm moving or I'm just doing something that feels like natural or organic to me. So like driving, it doesn't take a lot of thought. Or if I'm walking or I'm outside, I always have to be like just out doing something, and then an idea will drop on me and I'll know if it's from God or if it's not. But now I'm learning that's how he communicates. I'm like, oh, God has given me that idea. Let me roll with it. So that's kind of how I've been learning to just communicate with him. And it's not like, oh, I need to go deep into prayer and turn on my saturation music and
saturation music
and just see what he downloads. It's like, no. Or sometimes I'll get a dream and that will inspire something, or, you know, God will just keep pressing like the same button. And I'll just keep hearing the same thing in my spirit. Like now he's instructing me to start my blog again. And that's something that I haven't touched in 3 years, you know, because I'm like, and even thinking of, I'm like, God, you want me to start blogging again? Like, do people read blogs? I feel like people are more into the video and all that, but that's how he wants me to start communicating what he's showing me again. So I don't know where that will lead. It may lead into more video form. But for now, he's just like, write again, you know, share what you're learning, share your experiences. And that's where I'm starting.
And so how did you get to that place of like knowing that those unctions and feelings and I'm moving around and driving and whatever, like all the ways that you hear God, how did you get to the place to know that that was God and not just like you? So
he would start confirming. So I think the first time it was clear was when I had wrote my last film that I did, 30. I wrote it.
Excellent movie, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I had wrote it and I was driving one day and I was like, God, if you want this done, like you're going to have to fund it. And it's just like a natural, normal conversation with God, like just randomly throwing that out. Because I had the script, but I didn't care to make it at the time. Like I didn't really care to make anything at that moment. And I just heard so audibly, like, you know, as I'm just moving and doing the things I naturally do when I'm driving is when I talk to myself the most. I'll be on interviews with Oprah, like it be all types of stuff in my car.
Yep.
But yeah, so as you know, I'm going through all my motions, I just hear clearly like, yeah, I want you to make it and I'm going to fund it. Like, I'm going to send you at least $10,000 for you to do this. Like, I'm going to send people are going to donate. He gave me specific names, numbers, all this stuff. And I'm just like, I am making this up. Like, this is just another daydream that I'm seeing, that I'm, you know, living out. But I could just see it so clearly. And it wasn't until like a couple days after that, randomly, someone had PayPal'd me $4,000 out of nowhere. And I instantly started crying. I was like, wow, like that, like you were speaking to me that way. And I think it would be, that would happen and I would get confirmation within days. And that's how I really started learning, like, oh, this is how God is speaking to me. It's not just stuff in my head.
So it feels like trial and error faith.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
it really does. Because sometimes, I mean, I ain't talked to Oprah yet, but I've been in the same room as her. So it's like, it's little things that encourage you along the way.
I've been in the room with Oprah.
Literally just like the same rooms. I like.
That's how I know you. That's how I know you live in California. Because
definitely
niggas in California be name dropping like crazy. And by the way,
I'm not name dropping Oprah.
In a room with Oprah, like, all right.
That's it though, because people in California be like, "Yeah, me and Oprah have sat down and talked," and it's like, "No, y'all haven't."
They be lying.
She doesn't know your name.
So that's really dope, because here's the other thing that's really interesting about your journey is that, like, dog, you moved.
I did.
So you're born and raised in Columbus, right?
Yes.
Columbus, Ohio, and then like you moved to LA.
In the middle of the pandemic, at the start of it, really.
Faith.
And
so what was that process like? And what was that process like? And how did you know it was God? And like, what is that journey? What was that journey like initially when you knew you was gonna move?
So I knew I was gonna move. 2019, the Lord told me that I was gonna move. And so I'm thinking I'm moving to Atlanta because that made the most sense to me. It was easy. I felt like I could like transfer over there pretty easily. And it wasn't until like early 2020, like God had showed me a dream of when I went to Atlanta and I was lost. Like I was just driving around and I'm like, oh, okay, I guess I'm not going to Atlanta. I guess I'm not moving. And it wasn't until after I released Toxic that I got a vision of me moving to LA in the fall. But I didn't think that was possible. I'm like, I just signed this lease. It's not over until next year. Like, there's no way, unless, like, someone is literally paying me to move. Like, I'm not doing it. And I had no plans to move at all. We get to August 2020, and I had 2 friends that I knew that were moving. And I was just trying to, like, wrap up some projects that they were a part of so that, they could move on. And I didn't think nothing of it. And then I experienced a little bit of heartbreak. And I was like, man, I think I just need a break from Ohio. Like, I know people that live in LA. Like, maybe I'll just go to LA since I love it so much. I'll write, I'll create, I'll take some time off work. Like, that was my plan. And I remember telling my best friend about my plan. Like, yeah, I'm going to take some time. I'm going to go to LA. I'm going to write. And then I'll come home, like, while I'm on this leave from work. And she instantly started crying. I'm like, what is wrong with you? I'm like, why are you crying? I'm coming back. She's like, nope. She's like, I just heard in my spirit that when you go, like, you'll just be coming back to get your stuff. And it resonated so deeply with me and scared me. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, there's no way that can work. Like, I can't, like, no. Now we both crying,
Yeah.
And so then, like, I started applying for apartments with one of the people I knew that was moving out there. And I just kept praying for it not to go through. And they found someone to, like, take over my lease. Like, everything was just starting to just come together and move very quickly. So when I ended up going out to LA, what originally was just going as, like, a vacation and a break turned into apartment hunting. And I applied for an apartment. And I told the Lord, I said, okay, like, if we get this apartment, I'll move. But if we don't, like, I'm waiting till March when my lease is over. Like, I'm going to do this when I'm comfortable. And we ended up miraculously getting approved. We shouldn't have got approved for that apartment. And we ended up getting approved. And I had to cut my trip short and come back and pack all my stuff. But, like, everyone that I talked to, like, I was just looking for someone to disagree and just not be in support. But everyone I talked to said yes. And when I was talking about Atlanta, everyone was saying no. Like, keep praying about that. I don't know. But LA, which seemed like bigger, it seemed more expensive. It seemed like I couldn't be able to handle this. Like, everyone was agreeing, even the people that I thought would disagree. And I had my parents' full support. And yeah, that kind of just confirmed like I'm supposed to be out here.
So, you know how I know faith is what it is? Like, niggas be scared of faith. Like real faith or like real confirmation from God, like it's scary. So
and you don't want to do it. I didn't want to move.
You don't want to do it. You don't want to do it. Everything. Like, yo, folks be so bold in their faith, like I'm believing God.
Yeah.
Anybody I know personally that has really like gotten some sort of confirmation from God and like walked through the process that you just described, like they be scared the whole time.
Way. I feel like I went to LA kicking and screaming.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, there's no way it's time for me to do this right. Like I have to go right now.
Yeah.
And it was so crucial for me to go at the time that I did because the way things were lining up so quickly, it was just time.
Yeah, yeah. Kicking and screaming for you to like follow your dreams.
Yeah.
That's
like
crazy.
I had been begging God to go to LA for years.
Yeah.
And when he said no, I was just like, okay. And I think I just got so comfortable in the no.
Yeah.
And I had finally figured out how to do what I love to do in Columbus. Like I finally figured it out.
Yeah.
Finally started putting the pieces together. And he's like, okay, move. It's like, wait, what? I have a team now. I have a way I can do this easily.
Right.
And not that expensive. Like now I have to go. Like
start from scratch, essentially.
Start from scratch. And I literally met a good portion of my team that ended up helping me shoot 30 like within the first couple months. Like my first job, my first LA job or LA, thing, I met people that I still love and care about to this day. So
that's dope.
It was crucial.
Yeah. So sometimes I feel like God don't even let you like process your fear.
No.
Like
I didn't have a chance to grieve. Like I was shocked at myself with coming home and crying every day that I'm packing up my stuff and like having to tell people bye and preparing people for my absence and like they're just thrown off. Like, what do you mean? Why didn't you tell me this months ago? It's like, I didn't know. I literally just found out. Yeah. I'm still processing and having to deal with people's hurt feelings on my sudden departure. Like, you would be surprised. Like,
I'm not surprised.
people took it personally.
That's some Ohio stuff. But the grief that comes with change. Like, you're grieving. I'm walking into like new season.
Yeah.
And what God desires for me.
Yeah.
But like, I have to grieve my old life. I have to grieve the process of it. Yeah. I have to grieve my comfort.
Yeah.
Because you get really familiar. The reason why most people don't follow their dreams and really why most people stay where they are, I feel like, is because you learn how to like maneuver in your stuff. Mm-hmm. So.
And the unknown, like you don't want to go into the unknown because you don't know how it's going to work out.
Like because it could be worse. Even if it's God, it could be worse.
Yeah, it could be. It do be worse before it get better.
Like, yo, I don't need any more of your hardest battles. No. I am no longer your strongest soldier.
I never signed up for that.
Yeah,
like, no.
Nah. So what's also interesting is I think, okay, so I guess let me ask you this. Like, once you got to LA, what was the biggest, like, maybe like change or reality that you had to deal with?
That I didn't have community. I didn't have friends. Like, being here, you can go or at least I can go anywhere and see somebody that I know, someone I recognize. Like, even if I go into unfamiliar spaces, like I'm probably going to see somebody, or I'm not as self-conscious because, if I'm going somewhere by myself, like, who cares?
Right.
So I think that reality and that not everyone I was going to come across was going to be a good person or have the best intentions. Like, I was met quickly with, people that wanted to have a name or be associated with certain people or whatever, like cliquish. Like, I was met quickly with like industry people.
Yeah.
And that was from people that I knew from back home. And it's like, whoa, you got industry. Like, you're from Ohio, like me. But now you feel like you have this type of clout or this type of recognition or whatever. And because I'm new to this space and you don't recognize who I'm going to be one day, it's like you gotta distance yourself because I don't necessarily match the aesthetic or whatever it is you're trying to achieve by who's hanging around you. Yeah. So meeting people that just weren't authentic, that weren't real, you know, that discouraged me. And I really didn't have community for almost really not until it was like my first year in. Like, I was meeting people and I had like one new friend that I had met that had stayed consistent with me, that was from the area, but that was it. Like, it was really lonely, and just, you know, having to make friends as an adult. Like, we really have to be intentional. Like, I'm not going to see you at church. I'm not going to see you at, you know, consistent places or...
So you're also because you moved in the pandemic, so people
so
was
nothing
like
was open.
Super isolated. Yeah, there were no like mixers and...
I had to meet people through Clubhouse. Like, that's how I kind of started getting associated with LA film culture, and like meeting people through that and really realizing like how small the industry is. Like, I learned that a lot.
So even though you're in LA, you're in Hollywood, the industry is small.
It's very small.
Interesting.
Like, the spaces, like, so the music space, you know, they have their people that are moving and you get to know people through that. The film, the Black independent film space is very small.
That makes sense. Once you like start to niche down.
Very small. You see the same people over and over and over again. And, you know, it crosses and you just realize like nobody is not accessible.
Interesting. Okay. So was that a hard look, Zaya's just here. Zaya's just here. Like, it is what it is. It's fine.
Give me my toast.
She's crazy. Was that like a shot? Because I feel like if I would go out to LA and I'm thinking like, you know, big city of dreams and whatever, and then you realize you go to your 4th industry event, and you're like, oh, I seen y'all at the other 3. Like, was that a like a reality check or like a shock to you?
It was not really. I mean, not the more that you do it, it's not as much as of a surprise. It just makes everything like level field. Like, when that started happening, that's when I felt at home. Like, oh, this is what it's like. You know, like, it felt like I was from the city now, where like now it's people are coming up to me and recognizing me from stuff and all of that. So it was cool. Like, it made it more comfortable where I felt like anywhere I go, I'm good. Like, I don't need to have like people with me. I can go to this by myself. Like, I'm not afraid to do things alone there now. Not that I ever really was, but like, I don't like industry events though. They're not that fun.
100%. That's a fact. But also, you're not a gang member, so you can go somewhere alone and not have to worry about a rival gang showing up. So, like, so then everything becomes level, and then that kind of like, you were able to ease into it and did you just hit the ground running?
I don't know, 30 made me hit the ground running. Because I didn't, like, the thing is that I was out in LA and I wasn't working on nothing. I felt like because I had a team and I had all that stuff back home, like, coming out to LA, it's like I had to learn etiquette. You know, there was one time I just had an idea. And I asked, like, my first friend there, I'm like, hey, like, would you direct, you know, this film? And he's like, okay, do you have a script? I was like, no. And he's like, don't ask me to do something if you don't have a script. Like, you need something tangible. And I was like, oh, well, back home, he's like, this is not Ohio. Like, and that grounded me so much where it's like, everybody has good ideas. Everybody has an idea. It's like, what do you have that you're working with to show somebody else to bring them into that fold? And because I didn't have a script yet, I didn't have anything that God had really given me to even write or to work on. Like, I was just out there. And I felt like it was just more so about me adjusting than it was about me creating. And so then once I got into what like I flow in, what my gifts are, that's when everything started to come together. Because it's like, oh, I realized I've been meeting these people all year. I met you at this, I met them at this, and you know, God had already been setting up all the pieces. You know, I just didn't have anything to like put the pieces together in. And I wanted it to come natural and to feel natural. So once that happened, it's like, oh, okay, now I'm in LA because I'm working on something.
So during this time, new environment. Now you feel confident in like actually doing the thing. Mm-hmm. What is your relationship with the Lord like?
Up and down. Like when I first got to LA, I was still mad at how he moved me out.
Okay.
Like I was still pretty resentful, and because things like weren't moving, like I was getting all these prophetic words, and in hindsight, like hindsight, some of them were actually coming to pass. But like, you know, when you get a prophetic word, like you think it's gonna be big, and it's like it's little, it's tiny, but it matters in the big picture.
Yeah.
And you don't think about that. So I'm there and nothing's happening, nothing's moving, and I'm like, why am I here? I could have been in Ohio. I could have, you know, at least been around my friends, at least been around my family. Like, I didn't have to be out here to do nothing.
Yeah.
You know? The weather's nice, but like, that's it. So I was pretty resentful, and I was acting out of that resentment. And it was like the first time also that I felt like everybody wasn't watching me. Like, no one was watching me and trying to make sure I was going to be a good Christian, or that I was going to do something to make them feel comfortable in their judgment, or whatever they assessed of me. Like, I just felt like I could be free in a sense, but I didn't feel free. Yeah. You know, like there was no restrictions around me, but internally I didn't feel free. So I struggled a lot. I didn't want to watch sermons. Like, I just wasn't doing any of the things. I felt like I had to undo a lot of that stuff. And I felt like a woman in the wild for a while. Like, I don't know what relationship with you looks like. I don't know how to approach this that doesn't feel like religious, you know, rhetoric. Like, I don't know how to go about relationship with you. And to be honest, like, I haven't even gotten to that place of freedom until I came back home now, you know? And it was just like a whole journey, a whole process of like this year. I just really felt the tug from the Lord, like, you know, just get back in sync with me. And it's okay that it's going to look new. It's going to look different. But if you start working on it, like, I'll free you, you know, when you're ready to receive that freedom. But yeah. But all of this though, sorry, not to even cut you off. But I think what put me in that place of worship is that even through all of my uncertainty and all of my, like, I'm not doing this, God still graced me. Yes. He was still speaking to me. He was still using me. Like, he was still blessing me. And I just thanked him. Like, you knew where I was at. You know where I've been. And you still chose to use me. You still chose to speak to me. Like, you still gave me ears to hear in the midst of all this confusion for me, you know? Yeah.
So in the pandemic, there was like a universal like crisis of faith that a lot of people had, because they weren't in church, and kind of like, I think a lot of people realized like they were relying on their pastor and whoever they were being discipled by to kind of walk the building, the schedule to like walk them through their faith essentially. Whereas with now, you didn't really have to do, like, now people are coming out of it. And I think also you look at, and this is even just my experience, like, you look at like the pressure of COVID and, you know, the pressures of all these questions and whatever, and you like feel like you have all this responsibility. And then you get to a place where like you feel overwhelmed and just, I can't do anything, God. Like, yo. And then you come out of that and you look back and you're like, oh, I'm not only am I good, like God is like with me. Yeah. And was with me
the whole time
when I didn't even have the ability to like comprehend or express what I was feeling. I just knew I was overwhelmed and I was mad and all this other stuff. And it's like God was still God and still showed up when I didn't pray for months, when I didn't listen to worship music, when I didn't, and even some of the stuff that didn't, because I'm with you. I listened to my first sermon a few weeks ago, and I was just like, I haven't listened to worship. Worship music is like a trigger for me. I'm just like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. And but I feel the freedom to like not have to do that.
Yeah. It's the honesty that God honors.
Yes.
Really.
And people say that, but I really do believe, I've been talking to my wife about this, like, I really do believe that, like, a lot of Christians don't know how to be honest. I believe when they ask for honesty, a lot of them are, like, really sincere and want it, but they came into a culture that postured and they just assimilated with the posturing, and that took on the guise of authenticity. But it wasn't that. So somebody like you, as long as I've known you, you've been very like, this me.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
And it like, I don't feel like it repels anybody. I feel like it attracts people who aren't believers to you. And then like the believers almost like, how is she doing that?
Yes. They don't get it.
Yeah.
Like they question it. Like, how are you able to just do this? Or how are people drawn to you? And it's just because I'm honest, you know? And I think that's the one thing that God really wants to use. And I think that's why he's pushing me back to the blog space to like share parts of myself, because that's what we need, you know. And he took me in scripture of the man that was like, you know, yes, I believe you can do this, but help my unbelief. And then God instantly honored his request because he was just honest. He was honest about where he was. And I think if more people and more believers were that way, they would see God move so much in their life. It's like you can't perform your way into his hand, you know, like you can't work your way to it. Even with my recent deliverance that I got, I didn't have to do anything, you know, and I'd always seen like deliverance as like something I have to do. Like, oh, I need to be praying in tongues. I need to be on my face. I need to be doing this and that. And all he said was lay down. And I just had to lay there. And all of it just started pulling off of me, you know? And I think it was just a testament of like how he wants to move and how he desires to move with his kids. Like, y'all don't have to do all of this. Like, just believe.
Yeah.
It's so simple. Like, the gospel itself is very simple. It just requires us to do something that's hard for people to do. And I think the enemy, like, definitely attacks, like specifically attacks like our ability to believe. And that's why I think that brings me back to just the purity of children. Like, you say it, they believe it. That's it.
So this sounds like you moved to LA, and on one hand it was to like pursue your dreams and be in Hollywood, but it also seemed like there was a time of like isolation and separation that God wanted to like, so like the work was like internal. Yeah. Like, talk to me a little bit about what your internal process was like, being away from your family, away from your community. All you ever known is literally just you and God. Like, what am I doing here?
I had to face myself a lot. And it showed me like how much I run, how much I suppress, how much I don't address. It showed me, like, I was able to recognize, like, when I was triggered by something. Like, when something bothered me, when something affected me. I was just able to, like, see things more clear. And even during this, like, past time of, like, isolation, like, it was, like, intentional. Like, I think before I was isolated just because I was. But I never, like, chose to isolate myself. I never submitted to that. And that was something God had been wanting me to do for a very long time. And he's like, it's not even going to be like a long process. Like, just do it just for a little bit. And so that I can really work on some things. And I think it just gave me the ability to just see clearly within myself. Like, I think not being isolated is like, I'm always, you know, paying attention to this and what this person is doing and what this friend needs from me and this person needs from me. Like, I was finally able to just stop and be like, what does Tiffany need? And understanding that's also important too. Yeah. And with that, it's like, with checking in with myself first, like, now I'm able to come from a space that's more authentic, not in a people pleasing or like pulling. It's like, no, when I have the capacity, I can be there. When I don't, I'm gonna pull back, and you know, that's okay for me to do. But just also want to be communicative of that as well. I think sometimes people just ghost, and it's like, that's cool, but just let me know, you know, so at least I'm not taking it personal, but also understanding in that same breath, like, it ain't always about you. So, you know, it's just maturity in both spaces.
So what are some like practical things that separation like look like?
Practically, Well, letting everybody know that I was doing it, for one. At least people that are like close to me and matter to me.
Yeah.
It was reading a lot. I read books. I journaled. I would do like video diaries just with myself, letting myself know like where I'm at, how I'm feeling that day. But it was a lot of quiet that I wasn't used to. Like I'm always a person that wants to fill the space with noise or some distractions. But when they're all taken away, it's like you really have to like stop and look at stuff. So yeah, that was a lot. But reading definitely helped.
What was the best book that you read?
Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents. The best book I read.
Ooh, I need that.
It set a lot of things. It set a lot of things in place. It just explained where a lot of stuff started. I think with this time, I got to get to the root of a lot of things, and I really got to focus on like the little girl in me, because we all have that in us, of just a child that needs to be reparented. Yeah. So I feel like I had the opportunity to reparent myself in some areas.
Yeah.
And also let God be that parent, and also have some hard conversations with my own parents.
Yeah.
That helped, that I didn't think would help. You know, I'm like, no, saying this is not going to help me. Absolutely. Or letting them know won't help me. I just need to forgive them by myself.
Yes.
But like, God will always set up the opportunity for me to express myself. And really realizing like, wow, like, you know, 6-year-old Tiffany really needed that. And it just put a lot in place. Like, this is like the first time in my life where I could say, I feel like I've reached a level of wholeness. Like, I feel like back to myself. I felt like there was a part of me that left, you know, years ago, right before the pandemic, when I first started going through this faith undoing and learning and undoing religion and all this stuff. Like, I feel like a part of me just died. And I feel like God like finally just reconnected like that part with the new versions of what I've come to know and understand about myself. And now I just feel like it all has come together and makes sense.
So you're somebody that when we're speaking on separation, you're somebody who like, I feel like utilizes social media really well to like engage, but not in like a algorithm
brand
post the right time.
strategy.
Yeah, brand strategist, yes. But like whenever you show up, people like flock to and they're interested in what you're saying. But like you be ghosts from socials. Was that a God thing?
This time, yes. It was definitely a God thing. A lot of the times, like, there's just times I feel like I need to reset and I just need to take a step back. But this time it's like, I don't know when I'm coming back to socials. And that's new for me. Usually I always have like, ooh, I'm gonna do this for a month. I'm gonna do this 90 days. Like, it's always very specific. And I still find ways to be on it, you know, even though I'm off or I'm taking a break.
Yeah.
But this time, like, I really, like, God had kept asking me the same question, like, what's going to be the day that you decide to change your life? Like, which day is it going to be? And I knew what was required of me in order to start the process. I didn't know what it looked like in full, but I knew I needed to not be as accessible and I needed to not be as in touch with everyone else's thoughts and feelings all the time.
Yeah.
And so this time it's like I'm taking a step back, and I feel like I needed to understand, like, who does God want me to be on social media? Who do I want to be? Like, what do I want to give off? What do I want to share? And I think during this time of just like, especially when a part of me, like when I lost a part of myself, I wasn't even the same on social media when that happened. Like, because I didn't feel like me, and I didn't know what about me that I could share anymore. But now that I feel like I've come to myself, it's like, and God has given me different things that he wants me to start doing, I feel like I'll have more of a sense of self going back into it. But I just want to be me, you know, like that's it. I don't want to play into what everyone feels like they need to look beautiful or perfect. I feel like I started falling into that, especially when you're out in LA, like everything is about aesthetics and how it looks and watching people like actively do that and try so hard to have the right picture and then see lack of engagement. It's like, people don't want that anymore. They just want real people. Like, that's it. And I think God had started something really strong in me years ago when I was in that space. But with going through, all the transition, it's like I couldn't upkeep it. And I think that's why he's taken me back to like what he originally wanted in me. But now I have so much wisdom and knowledge and experience to add to it that it's going to be more fruitful and it's going to be more me. It's not going to be like a version of me that's appeasing church.
Yeah. Because because I do feel like the Lord is doing something with social media and with his people that are on it. Mm-hmm. It just feels like we've reached a peak, and I feel like God allowed many of us to experience like the highs and lows of algorithms and, follower accounts and things going viral. And the downside of that, where I've realized I don't want to go viral. Like going viral
is a headache.
It's not fun.
No.
You have a bunch of people coming in who don't understand you, your language, the community that you've cultivated, and they just kind of come in and project and assert themselves into your space.
They assume, they add their opinions. It's like, you don't know me.
You don't know me like that. You know what I'm saying? But like getting to a place of real authentic community, not having to be everywhere at once. And I think that allows us to be our full selves, because it's almost like if you are working on, I think of like Tyler Perry's like lot. So if it's a 300-acre lot and he's got a movie here, and a TV show here, and here, and him trying to go and all this and navigate at the same time, he can't really show up as himself and dedicate like his full attention to one particular show or movie or whatever. And I feel like that's what we do with social media, where I feel like moving forward, I want to show up in the places that I like showing up at versus like, I need to be
here. I need to be there.
Yeah, I need to be on TikTok because TikTok has the best engagement, or they about to, it's like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And I think God will honor that because, like you said, it's honest, it's authentic, and, whatever happens from there is just, it is what it is.
Yeah, because you're an Instagram person.
Yes, I love Instagram.
And I feel like God is like leading me to be more of a TikTok person just because of like my engagement on there when I'm just my most like raw or just sharing information, like it just picks up. And I'm like, man, if I were to make this same video for Instagram, it would have 50 views. Mm-hmm. And you could do it and it'll have 1 million, like easily, on Instagram. But the same video that you place on TikTok,
all
maybe
mine cap
1,000.
They cap at 200.
Yeah.
I've had a couple that gone like 7,000 or 8,000, but like I don't get no views on TikTok. But I don't like TikTok.
Yeah. And you use the example of Tyler Perry, and I feel like he's also a good example of staying in your lane.
Yeah.
Stay in the lane that works for you.
Yeah.
Because you have an audience for your lane. Like, you have an audience for Instagram.
Even if it's
and
bad.
Twitter. I think you're good on Twitter too.
I hate Twitter.
But you're good on there.
Because I've been there since 2008, so I know how. But like to a degree, I feel like I know how it moves, but it's changed.
Yeah, it has. And people have changed.
People have changed. Yeah, and it's like I don't really like engaging. It doesn't feel like fun and free and loose.
It's not
the way that it did when I was on there, 2010, 2013.
Twitter used to be reckless.
Oh my God, I look at my old tweets and be like.
Yeah, I'm glad I've deleted all those pages.
Yeah,
I won't be canceled.
I saved all of my tweets. You can I saved them and then I deleted them all up until a certain.
How did you do that? Delete all of them?
Yeah, I'll tell you offline.
Okay. I'm not gonna do it on this page. I don't think. I think I like my tweets now.
Yeah, I mean it's cool because one thing you do on social media is like you repurpose your old stuff like you do it on Facebook. You utilize your memories really well.
Yeah.
And I'm just
That'd be weird. All I gotta do is comment like on an old memory, and people will treat it as if I said it yesterday.
They don't even look at the date.
But
They're just like that was 2016. But they just like. But it's like it's cool to see like you have a really good job of identifying what like shows growth, or because you'll comment on something and be like, whoop, I don't feel like this anymore. Oh my God, I can't believe I did this, and it's like it works.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like I think that's one of the advantages.
People so easy. It's like I'm just
see. Here you go.
It's natural. I don't even be knowing I be doing that.
But that's the thing. That's just how you show up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the funny thing is, and we're wrapping. I got a few more questions, but like, what was very interesting was you're doing all this internal work in California. The Lord got you here, boom, 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 blah, 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 and then you drop 30, and you fill up a venue in LA. A theater, my bad. Yeah.
Downtown Inglewood, the Miracle Theater. It seats like 400 people. There are at least like 250 to 300 people there.
That's good.
Nearly 400 people had registered to come, you know, and then we had our names and like on the little marquee. Like, it was really cool. Really unexpected, really cool. I almost didn't do it. Because I know so many Ohio people were like salty, like, why didn't you tell me? I'm like, y'all, this literally came together in the last like few days because I wasn't going to do it. Venues weren't calling me back or they were too small. And like people that knew me, they were just like, are you sure you're even going to need like a lot of space? And I think that's why it's important on who you have in your community, because the guy that I went to tour Miracle Theater with, because I was looking, I was like, man, this may be too big. And he's like, you can easily fill this out. He's like, think about the people you know. Think about the people I know. Think about the people that are connected. Like, it's bigger. Like, he had to show me, like, this is possible.
That's fire.
You can do this.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't for him saying that to me, like, I would have easily talked out of him, like, we're not doing this. We're not going to do a premiere. But I really wanted the cast and the crew to get their flowers. Like, that's what was most important to me. Like, I want y'all to get recognized for all the hard work that you did. And I want as many people as possible to have the ability to do this. Because so many others were telling me to charge. And I'm like, no, I want as many people in this room as they don't know me. They don't even know what I'm capable of. Right. But I want to set a standard. I want to set a tone now. And so to have a standing ovation of like a room full of strangers, like, I'm not from here. At that time, I'd only been in LA for 2 years. You know, I was just past my 2-year anniversary. It was the day after. And so to see that many people there come in, show up and love it and respond to it and laugh and yell at the screen. And it was surreal. Yeah, like I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe God did that.
To be, it is not. I said, to be, it is not.
No, it's not to be.
It's really like 30 is really, really good. So it's funny because the reason why I bring that up is you mentioned like people in Columbus and like Columbus is just notorious for like not supporting its own.
Yeah.
I do feel like there's something going on in the city where I'm seeing more support now than I ever have in the 10 years I've been here. But do you feel like you would have gotten that same kind of support if you would have had a showing here? Could you have filled up the Gateway? I mean, that's not even 400 seats.
No, it's not. No, I don't feel like people would have responded to it the same way. And it's not to say, I think 30 is amazing.
It is. It's really.
But I think Columbus like supports things in quiet. And so do I think they would have been in the theater yelling and like no, absolutely not. I think it would have been pretty quiet. I just think there's just a lot of pride and ego here in order to get like the love, and because they don't see it often, like it's not often happening. And even when you go to the movies here, like people aren't interacting and engaging with it. It's pretty quiet, you know, even on the funny parts. So like, I would have done that here and like not gotten what I feel like it deserved. I'm like, yo, I'm not ever. And I think there's a reason why I lived here when like things were, you know, coming out, or why I didn't do a screening for Toxic. Like, I don't even think it would have done as well as it did. And when it first came out, if people like would have had the ability to see it somewhere else, or it would have had a screening. Like, I think the anticipation and like more of the nosiness is what kind of drew people to that project at first.
Yeah.
Outside of like, oh, I really want to support you.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess the last question that I have.
These are good questions. You're doing a good job.
Thank you. I'm trying. The last question that I have is like, what advice would you give for someone who is trying to honor God with their dream chasing?
Include God in every part, more so than people. Like, people will talk you out of the things that God has told you to do, and look to please Him than people. Because it'll just, if you're trying to please people, like, it won't feel like you're chasing your dreams anymore. It'll just feel like you're trying to appease others. And I got lost in that somewhere along the way, where like I feel like God wasn't even using me as creatively or as freely as he could have, because I was trying to please man and like let people feel comfortable with my art. You know, even with the 30 trailer, like, you know, people are drinking wine and all that stuff all through it. And I'm like, man, like I wonder if I'm gonna get the same support from the church, you know. But it didn't matter, because I'm like, literally God has supported this from the very beginning, knowing the end, knowing exactly everything that is going to happen. And it's crazy that it just so happened that in the movie, like, you never see me physically drink wine. Like, you never see me actually sip it. And that wasn't intentional. Yeah. But I just feel like there's a way for him to honor you and keep you covered throughout, you know, your ministry, no matter what. So, like, just don't overthink it, and just don't think about serving those that already know Christ. Like, that is not your audience. If you are, you know, a Christian or a believer making art, like, don't think about those that already know the Savior. Like, it's not about them. All of this is evangelistic tools and all of that. Like, you know, when, even if you use Jesus as an example, like, he would use things that the people of that time could understand, and parables and stories. And, you know, the disciples like, why are you always doing this? And he's like, I just have to explain it in a way that you can receive it and you can accept it. And I think that's the approach that we should always take with reaching the unbeliever. Like, do it in a way that they can receive it and they can see it. And God will always be glorified, even if it's just in how you posture yourself. I feel like with 30 the most, God has been glorified just with how I submitted and how I was obedient, even when I didn't know how it's going to look like. And when you hear the story, it's like, all I can say is God. I can't say it's anything I did. I wrote it. That was about it. But God literally carried everything else. And it's so funny when I interact with different filmmakers and I'm like, well, how'd you get the funding? I'm like, God, like, sorry, I have no, like, people, it was, God literally put it on people's hearts to give to me. Like, I wasn't out here begging and asking. And, you know, like, I did a book signing, you know, that was about as most, but that funds, like, those funds barely went to the actual movie, you know, like, it just raised awareness for people to donate. So yeah, like, just keep God in the center of it, like, and don't be surprised with how different it may look. He's a creative God. Don't box him in.
Yeah. So you just made me think of another question I wanted to ask you. So you're in LA, and we're seeing a lot of, like, entertainers, social media influencers, like, seemingly have, like, authentic encounters with God, and they are sharing it on their platforms of millions of people. Like, you being out there, is there, like, legitimacy to that? Like, is God doing something in that demographic? Like, what's going on?
There is definitely a revival happening in LA. Like, people are craving spirituality. Like, they are craving God. They are craving something that is just not tangible in that city. Like, you don't feel God in there. You feel oppression. You feel the struggle. You feel the resistance. And people really crave it. And that's why they look for it in so many different ways. They do yoga. They do these sound baths. They do crystals. Whatever it is that they feel like they can connect to the spiritual world. And I know that these people have tried all of those things. And they're still empty. They're still mean. They're still broken. They're still sad. And I can say personally, like, nothing fills you up like the love of God does. Like, nothing fills you up like Jesus does. Like, it's just something that you can't explain. So I know for them to go so counterculture, because it's not popular to talk about Jesus out loud or to share that type of part of testimony, because so many people believe so many different things. You don't want to step on toes. You don't want to lose opportunity. Right. I think it's amazing what Blac Chyna is doing, because so many people are giving her opportunities. Yeah. Like, and it's good to see the fruit. And for me, that tells me how authentic it is, because of the fruit that she's getting. Like, all the ways that she's tried to get attention, nothing has gotten her attention the way that this has.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Because I lost my train of thought. It feels really, really, really that's what it is. Because what's interesting about those platforms is I'm waiting on like the persecution, but like all of those platforms, these are not Christian platforms at all, but they seem like genuinely curious.
Very curious.
And they're asking questions, some of the questions, and the questions are not like snarky or tongue-in-cheek, like they're kind of like funny or whatever. But
or they don't understand, like, so the Holy Spirit, you got baptized, what does that mean?
What does that mean?
Yeah.
And I'm seeing a lot of people, so I'm seeing like that sincerity, whereas before it's more like they're doing it just to like,
to point and laugh.
Yeah.
But I think God had to use somebody like Blac Chyna because everything she's done has been full force, very authentic, very real, and very opposite of like what, the classy I feel like people that I knew had seen her at events and she would just be like quiet, shy, reserved in the back. Like, she was very disregarded and discarded. Like, it's like she had like a black tag over her. So to see her get all of this like love and just warm and embracing, it's like that's how I know it's real. And it's not for her, this isn't new, like she got baptized nearly a year ago. So I feel like the work has been getting done and she's been getting undone in private. And now, when she finally decided to share it, it's like it's louder and it's more real and like more ingrained in her because this isn't like an overnight thing. This is something that she's been on a journey for almost a year. And I think that's when it's best for, even celebrities to start sharing it. Like we saw what happened with Kanye, like be processed in private, get undone in private, and I'm just praying for her. She continues on this journey, but it feels like she has people that are already in place to hold her accountable and talk to her and that she's genuine about it, and I hope that her journey continues.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, we could talk for another.
We can talk forever.
That's just what it is. So I want to thank you for, coming in some spaces that I curate, just because I know that you're an authentic voice and, I'm just watching you. It's weird, like, where we talk about like I'm your big brother, but like, I feel like our relationship is different, kind of like with your parents, where they're not like lording over you. Like then the relationship becomes more like mentor or friend, like, okay, big homie, whatever. So you still have that reverence, like, okay, this is my brother, but at the same time, like, I don't have to like watchful eye, you better not be, you know what I'm saying? I don't feel like that because I just see like the growth in you and just everything that God is doing is clear, and I just feel like I told you this is like only when you get it from you. So I just want to give you flowers. I'm super duper proud of you.
Thank you.
And I love you.
I love you too.
Yeah.
Thanks for doing this. Like I'm proud of you because you've been doing walking in a lot of unfamiliar territory, even with the Patreon. Like that's something we've been talking about for a while. And now you're doing it.
I came to your house like a year ago. Yeah. Like, what should I do?
Yeah. And people are really like buying into it and supporting you, and you're building that community, Yeah. So I'm just praying that it just continues to grow and you continue to find your footing and how it works. So I'm proud of you, man.
For sure. Yeah. Okay, we're done. Tell people about 30 and what you got going on, what you've done, where they can find you and connect with you and all that good stuff.
Okay, so 30 is currently in film festivals, so it won't be on any online platforms right now. I'm really working on trying to get it on TV. That is my goal.
I'm selling the Dropbox for $39.99.
No, for real, if you do, like, just cut me in.
I got you.
So, but you can find me on social media when I'm on it at simply.creative. That is me on Instagram and Instagram and TikTok, simply.creative. Twitter is simply creative. By Tiffany Campbell, though, I'm coming back out with my blogs. So go to BY Tiffany Campbell, PB, that's how you spell Campbell in it, .com, and you'll be able to keep up with everything that I'm doing there and subscribe to the website so you don't miss anything. Because for people that are subscribed, I may allow y'all to see 30 before it's released anywhere. So you want to be subscribed. I'll do like an online screening or something like that for y'all, just for subscribers only. So
we should do it. We should do something with the Patreon, with my mailing list. We should do like a private screening.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Figure something out. Yeah, that'd be dope.
Yeah, you got way more subscribers than I do. on your email list.
I do. Shout out to my mailing list. Y'all be holding it down.
Listen, and it'll be free too.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
so I got y'all.
Yeah, okay. All right, bet. Yeah, now I think we're done now. Yeah, we're done. We're done now.
We're done.
Yeah.